Hello, ladies. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. How are you?
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
After that time change.
It's not nearly as tough as the one in the fall. I know so many people that struggled with it.
Isn't
I'm
this
just glad.
this is the one where we lose the hour though, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but I think it was just that it's dark.
All right. Can you see the presentation as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. We got a couple more minutes and then we'll get going.
Oh, and Brandy, I got the thanks for your interest. We're moving on with someone else email last week.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, oh well,
Oh,
not my
well,
door. Yeah, not my door, not my window.
that's right.
Whatever.
That's right. Faster you can move on, the better.
Yeah. But thanks to your help, I don't feel like I did anything wrong. So
Good.
that's
Yep. That's good. Monica, I don't know if I've met you before. You're on mute, Chica.
I'm sorry. I don't think I'm new. I was at the South Lake Focus Group last week, and some colleagues that I met there recommended your
Monday morning session. Yeah, that's awesome. Have you taken the Gallup CliftonStrengths before?
I have.
Okay. Do you have Intellect as a strength, or you just join in to learn more about your fellow intellects?
I'm just joining to learn more.
What are your top 5?
Oh shoot! I just did it last week, so I'm still reviewing my report, so I kind of need to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
I think ideation was one of my top 5, so it sounds like it's similar to intellection.
Well, to me, they're completely different. But maybe to you guys, but I'm like, I'm in it. So we did ideation, right, guys? I think we've done it. So there's a YouTube channel, Monica, called Strengthology Insights, I think is what I called it, or Strengthology Leadership Insights. But if you just Strengthology, it's the only one out there. I think it has the ideation insights on there, if you want to listen to that one, and if there's any other ones out there, because we've done probably about 10-ish of these. And then we will, continue to do them through every Monday through probably July till we get through all 34 of them.
Okay.
And there's a schedule online okay, let me just hit escape here because I want to show you. Okay, so here's the YouTube channel right here. And let's look and see if we've got ideation out there. Let's look. Yep, right here.
Okay. I find this all very fascinating.
Me too. Me too. I love this stuff.
I wanted to pick one up, but I spoke with some people last week and they said I should definitely check out your podcast.
And then here's the schedule. So on LinkedIn, I've got a post floating around out there with the schedule. And so you can see which dates are coming up for which strengths.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I can just copy you on this. Let's see here. At Monica. What's your last name?
Cornwall.
Cornwall. Let's see.
Here I am.
This is you right here?
That's me.
Okay. There you go. Now you're on that.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, let's get started. I know we'll have some people trickling in and joining us. And we've got a chat down here. Oh, good morning. Good morning, Kelly. Oh, good. Intellection's your number 1. Awesome. Okay. So let's go back here, view. I always love it when we have people here joining us who have the strength so that they can tell us more about this particular strength. For me, this is my number 7, and I just feel like it plays a huge part in my life. So I didn't even have to interview anybody for this one. I felt pretty good about being able to put the slides together myself. So, oh, did I not highlight it? Oh, it's down at the bottom. There it is. Sorry, these, you know, when you're on the Zoom and they have all these menus everywhere, you got to move things around to see. Okay, so intellection shows up in a person's top 5 strengths 12% of the time. And as you can see, as you compare these percentages of all the other strengths, it's a little bit more rare. Okay, the closer you get to a single digit percentage means that not quite as many people have that particular strength. It falls into the green zone, which means it is a strategic thinking strength. And that also means that you don't have to ask an intellect to put a large amount of effort into thinking. They're already thinking just to think because they enjoy thinking. Okay. In the strength zones that we're looking at every week, you can see that intellection falls into the innovation zone. So what intellects do is they read. I have never met an intellect that doesn't read. Every intellect that I have spoken to ever in my full coaching career loves to read. And so what they do is they read and read and read and read, which allows them to have insights and perspective to share in order to innovate something into into something more realistic, more usable, more practical. For me in coaching, it allows me to give you guys tangible tools that you can actually use to work with. So that's why it falls into this innovation zone. Okay. These are the traits of an intellect. People with intellection are highly intellectual and introspective. They appreciate intellectual discussions. So you will find that they generally contain a lot of wisdom because, again, they're reading and reading and reading. They need a significant amount of time alone because their brains are processing and thinking and sorting things out and comparing things. And you can literally think of these people as just thinkers. They are people who process and think to come to some sort of realization or conclusion or have an enlightening insight. And then they just share that. And their function is not really beyond that. They might have discussions, they might debate, but really it's all about thinking. And the topics that they typically like are things like psychology, philosophy, and literature. Any questions about the traits of an intellect? Kelly, do you agree with all of this on the screen, Miss Number 1?
Good morning, Brandy. I absolutely do. Thank you. I think this slide very well encapsulates a lot of the characteristics for intellection, and I find myself nodding along, agreeing and saying that's me with many of them. So thank you. I think that's interesting, and especially that, they are so open to information and processing that and digesting it, and also kind of a joy in working with others to share that. So yes, I'm relating to this very much.
And you and I have probably both, well, I know I have, I'll ask you the question. I've had people tell me, you're overthinking it.
Yes. And a common response is, yes, but have you thought of this?
Yes. And my response is, yes, I am, but I'm enjoying it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that I found interesting where it made me smile is it's bullet point number 4, where they follow intellectual trails.
Yes.
And I relate to that very much, where just there might be a topic of interest, and I'll just kind of, start my own research on that and just kind of follow it where the trail leads, as far as like, oh, okay, I'm learning something new. Gee, I didn't know that. Yeah. And as a result of just innate, really curiosity, it kind of leads you down a trail to finding out more about things or answering your own questions.
I find it, especially like the intellects that I have worked with, they all kind of get drawn into the whole, like, mystery criminal stuff, like where you're putting all the pieces together, or like the movies like that too, right? Where you don't know everything and you have to follow this intellectual trail to come to a conclusion. Those like automatically turn the brain on and engage the brain. Is that similar for you?
The way I would express it as how it applies to me is I found over time that I'm really good, more like looking at things as puzzle pieces and thinking, okay, how do these things fit together?
Mhm.
Or where's a common thread, that I can find with these? And so that's where it's kind of nice, especially if I'm working on a project, that I might be able to uniquely see how disparate parts can be combined together into a
Interesting.
new option, a
What are
new
your
solution.
other fourth strengths? And if we just look at your top 5, do you know?
Sure, I knew you would ask that, and I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but the others are, and I forgot the order: input, which is huge; analytical, definitely makes sense; harmony, which is a big one, personally and professionally; and I want to say, if I don't know if it's strategic or I'll have to look for the other one, but definitely the intellection was number 1, analytical, input, harmony, and I'll have to research what the 5th was.
Right. So the input and intellect are found together frequently, and if they're not found together in a person's top 5 strengths, if they're in 2 different people, those people typically get along. Input and intellection are connect what I call connector strengths. But that definitely makes sense about what you were saying about just gathering tons of information around and going in and not just following an intellectual trail, but actually proactively seeking a bunch of research. That's your input function, actually, that's at play there. In order to then, follow along the trail.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's look at the next slide, which is the intensification. So there's your little input right there. So when intellection is partnered or paired with one of these strengths on the screen in a person's top 5 strengths, so just meaning that that person has both strengths in their top 5 or top 6 or 7, though that strength, intellection, and the opposing, the other strength here, is going to be intensified. You can think of it as, it's not a normal intellection, it's an intensified intellection. And then you go, okay, but why? So I've listed the reasons why here. So for example, connectedness has a philosophical nature, so does intellect. So when you put those 2 strengths together, that person becomes extremely philosophical. Okay. Another one is deliberative, and deliberatives really think a lot about a decision, where intellects just like to think. So if you have someone with both intellect and deliberative, their thinking is skyrocketed. Whereas individualization loves psychology, and so does intellect. So then that person becomes very heightened from a psychology perspective. Is this making sense to everybody, how this works? Oh, I guess that was it. I had another page. This is the only page. Any questions about this? No?
Nope, all good.
Okay, so intellection and input, like you have, Kelly, are paired together in a person's top 5 strengths 53% of the time. So they're found together a lot. What you never see intellection paired with is significance, self-assurance, or woo. And if you do have one of those pairings, like my wonderful friend Yusra has intellection and woo, it's so unique that she needs to make sure and leverage that and use that to her advantage, because less than 1% of the world has that as a top 5 combination. So intellects could potentially, okay, I want to explain some, because I've had so many questions about this in the last week, and I just want to put this out there in this conversation today. all strengths can get along with all strengths. You can have two people, and you can have people that have whatever strengths getting along with all the other strengths. There's nothing that says this strength does not get along with this strength. That doesn't exist. Okay. You have two mature people who are willing to understand each other and look at things from different perspectives. You got a partnership. Now, if you have someone that's saying, well, you're like that and I don't get it and I don't like you because of it, well, of course you're not going to get along with that person. Okay. But that has nothing to do necessarily with the strength. That has to do with that person and how they're interacting. So that being said, there are certain aspects of each strength that might kind of butt heads or rub each other wrong, or might cause conflict, or might cause question, or might be like, I don't understand. So that's what we're looking at when we're looking at the disruptors. We're looking at those little pieces. So for example, if an intellect loves to think and think and think and think and never get anything done, an achiever is going to be like, come on, I want to get something done. Same with an activator, right? An activator wants to act, doesn't want to sit there and think. And so, they might bump heads somewhere if they're working together on a team. They might have conflict with belief, because belief gets really dead set on their values and their beliefs, where an intellect is going, oh, but it could be this and it could be that and it could be this and I could look at it from this way and I can flip and turn it. They're not necessarily so dead set on that. Now, have I met an intellect with belief in their top 5? Absolutely, I have. Consistency are extremely logical. Intellects are a bit philosophical. Communication people love to talk. Intellects love to be alone and think. Harmonic people love to focus on practical, down-to-earth, clear action topics, where intellects are philosophical. So these are just some areas where there could be some misunderstandings. Intellects enjoy discussing topics extremely deeply, where positivity like to keep the conversation light. Self-assurance are extremely confident in their decisions and their ability to choose a direction, where intellects are going to fluctuate a bit more. Significance needs to be visual. They need to be spotlight on me. They need to be out there and being seen, where intellects are, I'm good reading my book where no one can see me. And same with woo. Woo are extremely social. They love social environments, where intellects are typically, I can be at home with my cat and my cup of coffee and be just fine by myself. Thanks. Any thoughts or questions about those?
It's funny, just in the different styles that we look at, and I'm just know you have a captive audience that's smiling and enjoying your presentation, because I'm relating to what you're saying, especially on the previous screen, where you talked about that sometimes it can be a bit of a conflict with achievers, activators, and belief people who rank high with belief, because they are so action oriented or so dug in their concepts and beliefs. And it really is a challenge, I find, with intellection is number one, because it's like, in thinking, you want to think things through versus quickly jump to action. Or with beliefs, it's like, well, but, have you thought about this, or look at it a different way? Want somebody who's so dug in, they can't, even be open-minded to other possibilities. So I'm relating to that. Sometimes it's a challenge for me with people who rank high in those other categories.
Yeah, because your mind can't even conceive why they can't look at it from multiple perspectives. Like, it's like, I don't even understand how you're not able to do that, where a belief person doesn't necessarily have that function. Now, let me put it a different way. It's not that belief doesn't have that. It's if your intellection strength is low, right? If your intellection strength is low, then it's just not how you're going to come at things. It's not how you're going to come at it or think about things. So yeah, it can just be so surprising to realize that people do not have the neuroscience configuration that says, let's think this way, or even I can think this way. Okay. Now everybody can really try to think a certain way if they dig deep, but it's extremely difficult. So what do us intellects, who do we connect well with? We love connectedness people because they're also philosophical. We love deliberative people because they're very deliberate. They take their time to think. They make really good sound decisions. So we love learning from them, and we're interested in their thought process and their models and all that stuff. We love our individualizers because they study psychology and they're really good at it. And we just love studying that as well. And, you know, getting into the depths of psychology with our individualizers. And then we partner really well and connect well with other inputters because they have lots of information and we soak that up like a sponge. We also get along with other intellects. We love those discussions. We love those debates, and just, you know, taking the time to sit there for hours and have a discussion. We get along great with other learners who, you know, love to learn, and we continue to learn and evolve our own thoughts by, you know, learning what they're teaching us. And then we get along with relators because we enjoy sitting down and having a discussion, and relators really enjoy spending time with people one-on-one, which allows us to connect, especially if the relator relates with us on some level. Okay, so what could be frustrating to an intellect if they're not getting time to think, if they're not getting time to read, if there's no intellectual trail to follow, it's kind of boring. You know, if we're not stimulated mentally, if our thoughts aren't being challenged, you know, if someone is giving us some information that really takes us to, I have never thought about that way, we are extremely engaged and interested in the discussion. But if these things aren't happening, then we're kind of bored and not interested. And if we're if we're bored and not interested, we're thinking about something else. And so we do need substantial time alone to complete that processing and that thinking as well. So we are at our best when we are engaging with others in a meaningful way in deep discussions. And you know, I don't know if you guys ever noticed on Harry Potter, that one scene where he has that time glass that he flips, and it's like when the conversation is interesting, it's flowing. And when it's not interesting, it's just dead. And that's exactly how we feel, you know, it is in interesting, engaging, mentally stimulating conversations. Our brain is on and we're totally engaged. But if that's not happening, then we shut down. So what do we love to hear? We love hearing that we're smart. We love hearing that we're intellectual, that we're really introspective. We love hearing that people are gaining from our thoughts, and we love sharing our thoughts if they have the impact. You know, I don't think intellects are pretty introverted, and they're not all about sharing their thoughts if they don't think people are interested in them. Because think about the way they think. If someone's talking at them and they're not interested in what that person's saying, they certainly don't want to impose that upon, you know, someone else. But if that other person is engaged and interested or has shows an interest, then they love sharing their thoughts and their perspective and the things that they've learned. And so then they like being known for their abilities to evolve. Okay, again, that's that innovation we were talking about, evolve thoughts or perspectives, and to, you know, help solutions become more realistic or higher quality. You know, as long as they're evolving it and helping it become something that it wasn't before, that's where they really feel like they can strongly contribute to a team and like to be recognized for that. What they don't like hearing is, you know, you're such a loner, you're too quiet, you read too much, you're intimidating because you're smart, you will, you know, you're always going to be alone. You know, these things, they're kind of like, yeah, you just don't understand me. No, I like being alone. I like to think. I like being quiet. I don't need people around me all the time. So if you're hearing this, just know that you're probably just in the wrong environment, maybe just trying to collaborate with someone who doesn't respect this or understand it or see the benefit of it. And it's some of those little red flags that go off that say, okay, is this really the right relationship to be engaging in, or is it the right interactions to be having, or is it the right job? I need to really take a look at that if I'm hearing these types of things. Okay, I kind of just went through this because I skipped ahead a little bit. These are the different things that intellects likes to be acknowledged for. Does anybody on the call have any additional, you know, anything to add to what I'm saying right now?
Brandy, it's Kelly, and I think I would just share, you so nailed it on the head as far as, the positive things that people with high intellection are known for, and also kind of the not so positive, more it's a challenge, for intellections when they're working with others. And I guess seeing a continuous theme in my own life as far as how I approach things or how I communicate, say with, coworkers or colleagues, etc. I think one of the values of strength finders is looking at areas where you have opportunities. So, kind of, I'm relating to, you're overthinking something, or why don't you just say what's on your mind? That in reality, a lot of times in the world, we need to communicate more effectively and concisely. And, there are those people who have the bias towards action, or, want it now, move fast, type of thing. And I think, it just behooves us to know the positive and the challenging side of our individual strengths, and also maybe take that into consideration for how we can adapt when we're working with others. That's been a struggle for me, but something I've tried to work on over time to, again, come to the table a little bit more quickly, or be more concise in my share, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things to add on to that, which is one, when do we do it ourselves, and when do we get a spokesperson, right? Someone with high communication, that we help them understand what needs to be said, and the messaging that needs to be said, and the influence that needs to be had, and just allow them to use their strength. It's kind of like when a child is in a mathematics class, and we're trying to help them, become this little mathematician, and they don't take to math. And we go, okay, let's just get you good enough, right? Let's get you good enough to balance your checkbook. Let's get you good enough to do your budget. And then we'll put we'll put energy into something else, so that, you can enjoy doing that other thing. And I think that's like where we all have to look for when we have, these strengths, and then we don't have these other strengths, is, okay, how can I get my strengths to where they need to be so that's good enough, but not put a whole lot of extra energy into the things that I'm just not naturally good at? How can I leverage the talents of other people? How can I partner with other people who have these other strengths, or how can I learn from them in order to execute this moment brilliantly? And then the other thing that I was thinking, Kelly, was like, as an intellect, thank God we love learning, right? And we love gaining perspective. And I think that helps us a lot when it comes to understanding other people at that table too, and what other people need to hear based on their strengths. And it allows us to adapt and focus on good, clear communication, for example, because we can now not have to do so much because we're doing it smartly. Does that make sense? Like, the more we learn about other people and how they need to be communicating, what their strengths are and what they need to hear, now we can be more effective in a short amount of time, and we don't have to get as good at that, just overall communication skill set, because we're doing it a little bit more strategically.
Thank you. That was a brilliant share back, Brandy, and thank you, especially as far as what we can do proactively, and then also I love the idea of partnering with others and to have the strengths that we need that we need to balance. That's
then we're
thank you.
Then we're engaging them too, which is a win for everybody. So speaking of communication, intellects, when they communicate, okay, they may want to debate, or they may want to talk philosophically. You'll see them reframing questions. You'll see them challenging, the thoughts that are coming out in the conversation. You'll also see them, I should have put on here, that you'll see them playing devil's advocate sometimes and hopping around to the different sides and different points of view just to teach themselves, basically. And sometimes they're not speaking at all. They're quite quiet, and that can be intimidating to some people, but you can just realize they're just thinking. And when they think, they're learning, they're teaching themselves based on the different things they're thinking and the different perspectives that they're looking at. They may also bring up really enlightening perspectives to share with you when you're in conversation. They may want to talk about psychology, for example, or they may talk about what they're reading or what they find interesting at this time. So if you are speaking to an intellect, then there's some things that you can do to have a really good conversation with them. Obviously, listening or asking them probing, thought-provoking probing questions, and asking them what they're reading as of late, discussing philosophy, discussing psychology, being willing in that conversation to go deep, because intellects really love to explore a topic deeply. They're not too fond of just the surface level stuff. And here are some engaging questions you can ask them. So for example, if you are a leader and you've just hired somebody onto the team, you got a new hire, and you've learned that they have intellect as a strength, you might need to break down some barriers of just getting to know one another. And so here are some interesting questions that you can ask them that they will respond well to. Okay, so if you are an intellect and you need to influence or sell something, this is not going to be a natural thing for you. So you have to be more strategic about how you go about doing that to be effective. So I've listed a couple of bullet points here of what you can do to create an environment where someone is interested in what you are proposing and are interested in exploring either buying the service, using the service, or the product. So what you can do is you can obviously provide perspective that they haven't thought about before. That positions you as the expert. You can also ask them really good questions, because then they're going to feel heard and like you really do understand what their problems are, what they've got going on in their business, and what they need to solution that. You can share, what else can we share here? Yeah, you can share how the products and services are going to enhance the either team, department, or company or business, and that can be around anything that you think is important to that person around enhancement. But specifically, if it's a product that enhances wisdom or intellect, that's going to be something that you are naturally going to sell. Oh, and I think another thing intellects can do that's extremely effective is to tell somebody, let me think about that, I'll get back to you, and then get back to the person and go back and say, okay, I've had time to think about that. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I think. I think that builds a lot of rapport and a lot of respect and integrity. It shows integrity, and it shows care that you've actually taken the time to go think about something and then bring your thoughts back and actually evolve the conversation or the solution or the potential remedies, right, to whatever it was that you guys were talking about.
Brandy, if I could share, one of the things that I really appreciated with a former manager of mine, and how we would have our weekly meetings, to catch up on things, is she knew I like to think. And it was really brilliant in how we communicated, that she would lay it out and say, I'm thinking about initiating this project. Why don't you think about that? And then next week when we get back together, share with me your thoughts. So she knew, rather than the, what do you think in the moment,
right,
or your ideas, in the moment, top of mind, that by allowing me the time that I needed, I would go off, research things, think about it, ponder it in depth, come back to the table with probably a fully articulated, concept of what we were going to do and move forward. She got better results. And so as a result of that interaction, I think what it did for me is that with any in any future engagement, or say in that kind of direct report manager relationship to go ahead and ask for the time to say, hey, let me think about that and get back to you whenever, tomorrow or in a few days, because I think we do come up, or at least myself, after consideration, I come up with a better answer. So now I know to ask for the time or train the people, that they're going to get a better, more thought out response if they don't ask me spur of the moment what I think.
Mhm. Yeah, that is a great point. I love how you took, what someone gave you and you were like, oh, this was a great gift. This worked really well, and turned it into, I should be asking for this so that this works for me so that I can be successful for this team or this company. I think that's brilliant. Okay, so if you're trying to sell or influence an intellect, you do need to provide enlightening perspectives. You need to, just like Kelly said, give them time to think. You need to discuss and debate the potential services and solutions and products, and be willing to go into, around in those circles with them so that they feel like they have thoroughly thought through what it is that you're trying to get them to buy into. Okay, if you are an intellect and you are interviewing right now, if you're transitioning into a new job and you're having lots of interviews, in those interviews you can share your thoughts about what you see. You can ask the interviewer what he or she thinks. You can reframe the questions that are being asked and tackle them from multiple points of view to show that you are considering things in a multitude of ways. You're not just stuck on one way of doing things. And you can discuss what types of things really stimulate your mind and what things you like thinking about on in that particular job or role, or what things you think you would like to think about. And then, discuss your favorite philosophies and frameworks that you would use to evolve this particular role. If you're engaging with someone and you're wondering, are they an intellect? Some things you can just ask yourself are, is this person, a bit philosophical sometimes? Does he or she read a lot? Is he or she a bit introverted? One question I get all the time is, Brandy, can I use Gallup CliftonStrengths to interview people and then hire them based on their strengths? And the answer is no, that Gallup does not allow that. But we can certainly ask some questions during the interview. So if I'm starting to detect that someone might be very intellectual or and is a bit introverted on the call, I'll ask them, I'll say, do you like to read? And if they say, oh, I love to read, I'm like, there's a chance that I'm dealing with an intellect here, because other strengths like to read too, but intellects hands down love to read. And so then I'll ask them, what are you reading? What do you like to read about? And that opens up a dialogue to hear if it is psychology, if it is philosophical things, like what kinds of stuff they enjoy studying. And then the words down here at the bottom are the words that turn those intellectual brains on. So when they hear these words, even if they're sitting on a subway and it's loud and someone says one of these words, they kind of look, right? They gravitate to it. They say, what are they talking about? That's interesting. And this also tells us what types of words to use when we are engaging with an intellect and if we want to engage their brain. Okay, if you're an intellect, consider debating with other intellects, because they enjoy those debates. Not everybody enjoys debating. And that way you're not intimidating people who don't enjoy these types of discussion. It says times of discussion, should be types of discussions. And so that you're not, putting others on the spot with the whole thinking thing. Silence, solitude, and time spent alone is really enjoyable and productive for you. However, that, may give off the perception that you're disinterested, disengaged, or just, like people might think you don't want to be around them. They might take it personal. So you just need to help them understand that, what it is that you gain from being alone, and find proactive ways to include them when you're done being alone. You know, ask people to do things with you, make sure they feel like they're wanted around, or that, you know, you don't, you're not trying to just get away from them. When you do share your thoughts with others, realize that your thoughts might be quite evolved, but this may be the first time that they're hearing these thoughts. So they may need some time to think about and absorb and digest what you're saying in order to have a response for you or take action on it. Okay, if you are someone who is intellectual and does make decisions a little bit slower than others, you just need to explain your process so that other people can understand it, especially to the quick decision makers. Be aware that your ability to justify every single angle and position may prevent you from setting healthy boundaries at time. So if that has ever happened to you as an intellect, you just need to think about, okay, what do I think about this? What is my creed? What standards do I need to live by? And man, I don't know if anybody else relates to this that's an intellect on the call, but mine are quite detailed. If this, then this, if this, then this, and if this, this. You know, it's a little bit of a complicated creed, but it makes sense to me. Any further thoughts about things that you guys would, you know, like if you were a senior intellect and you're talking to a younger intellect, you know, things you might recommend to them or ask them to consider so that they have more success as they refine and mature within their intellectual strength?
Yeah. Nothing comes to mind, but that was a really good slide, Brandy. Thank you.
I have a few more. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I have a few more here.
Thank you.
Because you sometimes play devil's advocate to understand another perspective, it may be difficult for people to know where you really stand on an issue or point. So you got to notice when it becomes unhealthy to keep testing people and putting them through the ringer, but to also just clear, okay, yeah, we've had this discussion, but this is really where I stand on it. And because you consider multiple points of view, you may have a hard time feeling convicted. So you do need to proactively take the time to build your own confidence and convictions, because that is an influential behavior. When you're confident, other people will be influenced by what you are sharing, what thoughts you're sharing. If you seem to be wavering or, flipping from one side to the other, people won't really buy into what you're saying. Be aware of getting trapped in long-winded debates that go nowhere, and also figure out how to challenge others in a way that solicits a healthy response, because we can be a little abrupt and just challenge, where sometimes we need to sit back and go, okay, how do I need to do this in a way that will get a healthy debate and discussion that actually leads to solutions and doesn't hurt people's feelings and is just considerate. Okay, so if you are an intellect, some things you can do when you're on a team is, recommend books of interest to others of things that you've read that you think that will help them grow. You can just be a sounding board and help your teammates make sense of things. You can offer up additional perspectives whenever you. I'm gonna have to. Sorry, I might have to make myself a note to fix off to offer. And then, obviously you want to get engaged in healthy discussions and debates where that is helpful. If something on the team comes up as an initiative that requires a lot of thought, you can always raise your hand and volunteer to take that on. I think it's helpful when you're engaging and collaborating with people to ask questions that allow them to, it sort of empowers them to answer their own questions, and it extends their thoughts. I enjoy doing that. I've got a little bit of learner in me, though. I like to teach. If you are working with an intellect, ask them what they think. That's the best thing you can do for an intellect. What do you think about this? Ask for their perspective or their point of view. Any sort of reading material that's good that you recommend to them, they're going to go read it immediately. or at least put it in line with their log, their reading log. I've also listed for the intellects on the call how you can leverage all these other strengths for things that you specifically care about. So these are your partners when you need to accomplish certain things. I want to specifically point out self-assurance. If you guys remember, intellection and self-assurance were not partnered up together in the beginning, right? Like it's a 1% chance that those two strengths get together in someone's top 5. But I think self-assurance provide a lot of value to intellects because intellects can feel uncertain or unsure. And self-assurance really will help you feel confident and assured about a decision or direction that you need to take. So although they are opposites and they may not get along if they don't understand each other, they're also, self-assurance is good for an intellect. All right, so what could intellects bring to their relationships? Number one, they have to explain the alone time thing to any partner that they're with so that that doesn't become an issue. They can reframe questions when you're having a discussion to make sure they understand this person really well. They can ask meaningful questions to grow and mature and evolve the relationship. They can read about relationships to make sure that they're bringing various perspectives to the relationship, as well as understanding how to behave in a way that develops trust and builds the relationship up. I did put in here, consider partnering up with someone who enjoys those intellectual discussions because you enjoy them. So it's helpful to be with somebody who at least enjoys doing that on some level. Also put here, you don't want to rely solely on your partner for those intellectual debates and discussions. You want to get a good group of people around you, surround yourself with some good intellectual friends so that you can get that bucket filled. Okay, if you're a parent, I've listed some things here that you can do as a parent, as you know, with intellect to help your children and engage with your children in a meaningful way. I think it's really great to be able to take the time and look at, you know, something that's going on with your child in multiple different ways and perspectives so that you're open to, you know, what's truly going on for them. And then that allows you to help them accordingly. Any other thoughts around parenting? Have any, you guys got any tips if you're an intellectual parent that you think has worked really well? If you have a child that is intellectual, I've listed some things that you can do for him or her to, you know, really engage that child. Do any of you have intellectual children?
This is Danielle. I have one, yes. And I'm looking through your list here, and this is great because my daughter, I'll give you an example really quick. She asked me one time, why does mosquito bites itch? And I gave her what I thought was a simple enough answer for a 6-year-old. And she said, I was looking for a more scientific answer. And so I explained to her, okay, when the mosquito bites you, it injects their saliva and it irritates your skin and so on and so forth. And she was like, oh, okay. And that satisfied her.
Satisfied her. Oh,
so yes, these tips will be very helpful for us. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I think it's because I was an intellectual child once, right, to my father, and I think I drove him crazy sometimes because I'm sure he's an activator, by the way. He's an achiever. He's a competitor. And I'm sitting here wanting to discuss something for hours. And he's probably just like, oh my, like this child is just like completely overthinking things. But again, I think intellectual, and I think my nephew is actually a high intellect too, because he and I can just talk for hours. We can go on walks and talk for hours about things and just talk about it and like from this perspective and then from this perspective and then, but what about this? And like, they just really enjoy that time, that quality time with people. Okay. If you are a leader and you are an intellect, you are proactively going to try to enable others' intellect. You're really going to look for ways to help teach them things, make them more wise, give them resources, get them connected with experts, because you always want them to be evolving. You are going to have to find ways to be decisive and make decisions and share those decisions out. Even if you might see things from multiple perspectives, you're going to have to pick one or two to go with so that the team members have something to follow. And I think we have to be very aware of being philosophical in that environment. If we have another intellect, we can do that. But I'm sorry, I had a historical moment here in my brain where I was on an innovation team one time, and it was full of intellects, and we get into these team discussions where everybody was intellecting, and I was just like sitting there going, I love intellecting, but we're not getting anything done here. All we're just doing is debating and looking at things from multiple points of view. And I think that can be a little overkill for teams, and it can make the team smart, but not productive. I also think that if you are an intellectual leader, you need to be very, very choosy about what teams you decide to lead in your future, because if you are leading a team that is, doing something that is very intellectually stimulating to you, you're going to stay engaged and you're going to be a good leader. But if it's boring and administrative and doesn't challenge your brain, it's not going to be a good thing for you as a leader or for the team members who have a leader that's disengaged. I think you guys as intellectual leaders have a wonderful shot at really understanding each one of your team members and tapping into them from a psychological standpoint and helping them be at their best, because you really want to understand them at a level of depth that a lot of leaders may not take the time to understand them with. And then, of course, we all do this anyway as intellectual leaders. We study leadership and assess whether we are being good leaders and really try to be authentic in those answers so that we can fix anything that needs to be fixed about our leadership, because we want to be good leaders. So we do a lot of introspection around that. If you are managing an intellect, there's lots of things you can do for this person. You can engage him or her in a philosophical discussion each week. You can give them time to think, like Kelly was pointing out before. Provide reading material, bringing back the thoughts around that material, asking them to participate in the initiatives that need a lot of thought. Think about thought quality is needed. Go ahead and engage that person and ask them to participate in that. And ask for their opinion, ask for their thoughts, ask for their perspective. If they don't feel like they have a good perspective on something, they're going to go get it and bring it back. Also encourage them to make sure they're spending blocks of time alone so that they're getting time to think and time to read and time to evolve their thoughts. And if you find any partners or mentors around the company that are also highly intellectual, they would really enjoy being connected with them. If you're a coach like myself, these are some things that I do with intellects. I ask them what they think about. I ask them what they enjoy writing about or reading about. I do find that a lot of intellects are writers. Like if I were to take a group of writers and then study their strengths. There are several intellects in those groups. One of the other things I do as a coach is I ask very thought-provoking questions. I can't tell you the number of times I hear, well, that's a really good question. Let me think about that. And as they think through it, they come to some conclusions that are very enlightening for themselves to know where they stand on something, or to know how they feel about something, or to know what they should do. So that's one way I use my intellect as a coach to help others. I just thought about it. We're looking at this from coaching an intellectual, but I don't have a slide around like how to coach as an intellect. That would be cool, right? How to become a good coach. So I'll add that slide.
I would appreciate that, because my field is also training and development.
Yeah.
So as far as, a lot of your suggestions around resources and, options for people to read and to learn and to grow, it would be nice from my perspective how I might share that, from my perspective as an intellectual wanting to engage people. But again, I think a lot of these bullet points are really salient, Brandy, and hit the mark. So, so from there, I can pull a lot out of how can I, especially being a leader, how can I better engage others?
Yeah, and the manager slide too, right? But I still think it would be like every time I write one of these slides, I'm saying the same thing over and over again. But I think it's important to say it from the other perspective. And of course, being an intellect, of course, I think that's important. But I just think it's helpful. It's kind of spoon feeding it, right? It's like, look, here's what you need to do to be successful. And I think that helps you guys all be successful faster. And that's important to me. So I'm going to add that in. These are just some daily actions. I like to look at these from two ways. One, these are things you guys should all be doing if you're an intellect, to be successful every single day. These are also a list of things that you can think about if you're a manager or coach or leader, that you can have your people doing that have this. And also, if you're in job transition, this is what you need to look for on the requisition. Is the job asking these types of things from you? And if it is, then it's probably going to be a pretty good fit. If not, then you need to ask yourself if that's really the right role for you. And I just listed a few of my favorite books. The way that I chose these is I thought about the ones that made me stop and think on every page, right? Where I'm reading the page and my thoughts get so drifted that I just stop reading and I'm thinking about things. And then I would be like, oh crap, I stopped reading the book because I'm thinking about all this stuff. And so then I would go back and I'd get through just one more page and I'd be off thinking again. So that's these books on this page. Any other books that you guys would recommend that you think have done that for you, that have just really made you stop and think? And that get into topics deeply? I'm happy to add them. Think about it. Let me know.
Laughing. Thank you, I will. And follow up via email.
Let me know. Let's see. Let me escape that. My OCD is going off here. I got 26 million here. Let's change that. Okay, we'll leave it like this. So if you've never taken this assessment, you're joining this call for the first time today, there's lots of ways to take the assessment. There's lots of languages to take the assessment. And there's also a app on your phone that you can download called Access. Let me just write that here as well, called Access. We'll center it, okay. And also, Kelly, I'm pretty sure you haven't done this yet. I'm not trying to call you out, but just making sure you see this slide. This is purple. Why is this purple? We need to make it blue from Sleeping Beauty. You guys didn't catch that. Okay. So after you've taken the assessment and you've got your full 34 report, or even just your top 5 strengths, I created a tool called Strengthology. So you can go to strengthology.co, where you can enter your strengths in. It is a $12. It is a $12 tool. Let's put that right here, right? $12. So we're being transparent. But it has a lot of these insights specifically for your strengths. And it's not just your single strengths, but your strength combinations, which makes it very uniquely valuable insights to you specifically as a person. Also, there's a YouTube channel that you can go to that Gallup produces to get additional insights. There's also books to read, lots of different strengths-based books. This is just so you guys know that everything I do this full time now, and everything, all the work I do and all the revenue I bring in, 10% of that goes to Operation Underground Railroad, which is a organization that helps saves children that have been human trafficked. And then here's my info that, you guys can reach out to me, and, please feel free to reach out to me anytime with questions. Email me, call me, text me, send me a message on LinkedIn. I am always happy to help all of you in any way that I can, to help you all be more successful. Any other thoughts or questions today? Any questions for the Intellects? Any questions for me? Any thoughts? Anything you want to share before we get off the call? Everybody sleepy from the time change?
I am feeling the time change, but Brandy, I just want to say thank you. It's really an extraordinary thing. Strength Finders provides so many key insights into so many aspects of our lives, and it was really a joy to see my number one strength so well articulated, and you truly, not surprisingly, gave me something to think about as far as really how that manifests itself in my life, and how I can work even better and more engaged with my strengths, knowing myself and knowing how I use that in my world and interactions with others. So thank you so much. This was all so very valuable.
Yeah, I'm so glad it was so helpful today. Thank you. And thank you for sharing so many good insights with us. I think it's really helpful for the group to hear from multiple people. So I really appreciate your participation. And next week is consistency, which is one of my top 5 strengths as well. So I look forward to presenting consistency to you guys next Monday at noon. Okay, have a good one. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Brandy.
Bye, Sanyel. Yep, you're welcome, Monica.
Thank you, Brandy.
Welcome, Kelly. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Julie. Bye, Susan.